Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. And as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussion. We are beginning this new collaboration series in March, because that's when all years should start. They should start in spring. That is my opinion. But otherwise, we are going to be starting up March of the Mechs, and we are switching up the way we're doing this a little bit. We're going to be doing 30-minute discussions, so that it's, one, more consumable for y'all, but also we're able to put out something each week instead of bi-weekly for those wanting to stay in the theme, as it were, for this particular month. And also that will allow people who are coming back and forth between the two channels of myself, with the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and Avenue Studios, with whom we are collaborating this with. We're going to be able to hopefully make that more consistent for y'all. So that's me jumping right into announcements, but without telling you I was doing so. So I'll go first as usual, so other people can think about what they want to say. I am Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads. If you want to support either the Inn of Planar Crossroads in our goal to get to $100 per month of support, that's the goal that we're currently working towards, you can do that by supporting on Patreon, Locals, Subscribestar, or directly contacting us to help us reach that goal. And I've already did the announcements for the change in the Around the Hearth releases. So that's what I kind of have. What about our friends from Avenue Studios?
Hello, this is Dan from Avenue Studios. I'm really excited that Jacob, who in my perspective is below me, is joining us. Thanks for being here, bud. No, it's not. I'm very excited for this collaboration. The theme months. On our end, we're going to be doing the Forest Forge, where we're going to build a module in Foundry. I say we, but it's really going to be Jacob. He's going to build a module. And, it's going to be great. We've already done one in Suede, and it's actually up. And the link to that is pinned to the video, so if you want to check out our first tryout at a module, it's up and available. We'll do some social media blasts probably before this comes up. And then we'll play that module based on the kind of the stuff we talk about. We'll take some of the ideas here that we brainstorm in Around the Hearth and try to incorporate 2 or 3 of those ideas into about a 2-hour one-shot that'll be fully fleshed out and built in Foundry Virtual Tabletop in different systems, depending on what theme we're doing. We're trying to line up a good system with whatever theme we're talking about that month. And then we'll play it in a live stream so you can see how it's played, and then go pick it up for yourself in Foundry and play it out, see how it goes. Of course, our supporters get access to all the modules we make at the yearling tier and up, and then if you're not a supporter, you can always find it on Foundry on the Forge. So, yeah. And of course, we live stream Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, and that is when you'll see Force Forge and the actual plays, as well as when this comes out, we will be starting our newest, we haven't quite gotten a name for the group, but our newest story from the same group that did Outlaws of Elkinstar will be starting Knights of New Seattle in a Fallout campaign. So check that out as well. I'm really excited for that. And that'll be in Savage Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's it. Anything on your end, Jacob?
I'm excited.
As am I.
So many good things coming down the pipeline for all of these collaborations. So
yes. Oh, and I'll throw out too, Josh from Copper Dragon Games. By the time this comes out, we will have already done the collaboration live stream with him and Adam from Inn of Planar Crossroads. So check that out in our live stream thing to see how we will do, and when you watch this, we did a game in fifth edition style, but without using the SRD. So a lot of stuff from Cobalt Press and Level Up and some other things. So I'm very excited for that as well, but that'll already be up on our channel by the time you're watching this.
Indeed.
And that's it. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah. All right. So that is y'all. And usually this is when Levi's spotlight would be, but we kind of agreed, since we're not sure how well we're going to go through this at 30-minute increments, that we would kind of...
We are moving on.
We're going ahead. So I guess the spotlight is Copper Dragon Gaming. So go over and look at Copper Dragon Games on YouTube. He may jump in. His setup was giving him some trouble, so he may jump in the chat. If he does, we'll just keep on going on, because that's how it has to be this time. Lord willing, this will all go nice and smooth. But that means that it's time to start. So, grab your preferred beverage, curl up by the fire, because it's still just a little chill, and join us as we discuss around the hearth Mecha. Specifically, mecha gaming, and choosing a theme for your mechs and their games, and how they're working in your system. So, that's what we're talking about this first time. As a preview for the next few times, we're going to do scale, talking about scale next. Then after that, handling scale at the table, which will be kind of more mechanical discussion on that. And then finally, for the fourth one that we're going to put out, will be mixing scales and themes in your game. So this time, like I said, we are choosing a theme. Does anybody else want to start off the discussion, or do you guys ready for me to start us off and get us rolling?
Explosions.
Watch me explode. Okay. Oh, no. Irons, Commander Irons, no. Okay. That's a reference to, reference to the Colonial Marines games over on Avenue Studios. So I guess I'll start us off. For choosing a theme, what we're really talking about here is the kind of mecha that you're going to be dealing with. Are your mechs going to be tech-based? There's all the way from super techy mechs all the way up to like flesh mechs and things like that are like living creatures. Evangelion very much mixed the two, so you have that middle ground as well. And choosing those is going to be important for your system, especially depending upon how gritty you want to get with your system. I'm a personal sucker for a more techie style mech. The fleshy mechs tend to get more. I like living starships; those are cool. But the actual flesh mechs, I'm not sure I like those as well. But I'm willing to be persuaded. So,
I most definitely have a preference of the Tech Mech, leaning towards like Zoids, animal kind of based looking. But obviously, the traditional like BattleTech mechs are fun. I loved Front Mission 3, I think it was, back on PlayStation 1. It was like a huge mech game that I very much enjoyed. And I actually am very unfamiliar with flesh mechs, and my only magic mechs I've ever dealt with was Final Fantasy stuff. So that's just my preference.
That is true. So looking at different inspirations, you've got your Gundam stuff, your really tech-based mechs, and the BattleTech. BattleTech is even more. They go into the actual functioning of different things and things like that for those. So using those can be. It's easier to find references for those type of things, and I think it lends better to the type of customization that you're wanting to do too. So you've got Gundam, which is kind of tech, really hardcore. Also falling under that is Magitech and Steampunk. Steampunk would be more closer to that. Steampunk, Dieselpunk, Tesla Punk, most of those punks would fall into that. And I think those just capture the imagination a bit more because they almost become more believable to us when we see what the fuel is, which leads into the kind of how gritty you want to be. So,
Big O was Tech Mech, right?
Yeah, Big O is a Tech Mech.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they ever elaborate on what powers him, but I think it was meant to be electricity.
I think it was too. It was like it fed off the grid, right? Because they were in the domes and stuff.
Mm-hmm. You can say down in the comments if you remember what Big O is. I was exposed to it in Toonami, and I think Adult Swim had it on when Adult Swim actually played, anime and not just whatever. But
so what is? I mean, Dan, what's your preference in mechs?
I don't know if I have a preference. But I definitely, you say mech, and I think for sure Gundam. Also for me, Titanfall. I think I love that probably the most. I do like flesh mechs in the idea of Attack on Titan, just because it's so different. But as I'm thinking about it, you're right. You would have less of that gritty resource management and different things like that, because it does get more magical when you get in. I'd be curious if someone could pull off a more gritty, or not gritty, what would it be? More crunchy flesh mech. That would be interesting.
And then you get into
I think
biotechnology mixture.
Right. That would probably be it. Yep. So thinking like heroic playstyle, a flesh mech like Attack on Titan sounds like a lot of fun. But I think my go-to would be something like Titanfall. So not crazy huge mechs, but you got the pilot and you got your mech, and you kind of have this symbiotic relationship, in a sense, emotional relationship with your robot. I love that.
Okay. When I think of... So if I know for sure I want a mech game, if that's the first thing in my head, the Tech Mechs are the most classic, so that's probably what I'm thinking. But if I am not as locked on that strictly and I want to decide, it really depends on how I want the world in general to feel. Right? Because, if we're talking, Titanfall, that's, a bit of sci-fi, but not full-on Star Trek sci-fi. Most of the time, if I remember the Titanfall games correctly. I think looking at this, you want to look at the types of stories you want to tell and look at the world that could facilitate it. Right? When I think of a, flesh mech, I think that a core thing you want to do is body horror. Right? Yeah. An important thing that I'm doing here is that when, the mech gets its knee stabbed, your knee bursts open. Because you are... Right, because it's an extension of your body at, a larger scale, and it's supposed to be... I would think that the reason you want to make it out of flesh is so that way you can, physically connect to it in a conceptual sense. So that way, even though you have that scale, you have that power, as opposed to, feeling your mech destroy around you and launching out. You are...
Right.
Your mech and yourself have to get repaired later because your foot got cut off in the runaway because their thing was better.
Yeah.
I think that sort of destruction of body, you might say, would... Now, most of the games I run, that's not the vibe I'm going for, in all honesty. I'm not much of a gritty body horror whatnot. But some people are. And if you want to add a power fantasy to the horror, which is a weird mix, but it happens.
Yeah.
I feel like that's why you'd want to go for flesh mechs, but you have to have that very specific vibe.
I think that the large difference between, to build off what you're saying, is asking yourself in your theming and in the universe you're going for, how are we going for dystopian future or utopian future, or somewhere along that scale? Because in dystopian or utopian, you can have these big huge mechs, and if you're going for superhero mech, which is like Daigao and stuff like that, where you have the mechs that look like superheroes, they look like the Power Rangers Megazord and stuff like that. They have those bright colors and things. Those are going to be more along the lines of a superhero type of mech where everybody kind of unites, and then you can have different piloting skills and things like that roll into it. And it's much more like piloting a spaceship together, which we can go into at handling Mecha at the table on the third chat. But for what we're discussing here on choosing a theme, that is a much more light-hearted approach to those mechs, especially when you consider just how much destruction happens when those mechs go and fight each other in Power Rangers, and these buildings are... and nobody says anything, so it's like...
Right, but in Utopian they can repair the buildings.
Right. It would become... It would by nature need to be, logically, a more utopian style, or further along that utopian line than dystopian, whereas steampunk actually suits itself better, or even Magitech can suit itself better, and regular tech, like real world tech, could suit itself better to slightly more dystopian, maybe post-apocalyptic or something like that. Those lean more dystopian, and dystopian in the loose sense, not in the actual definitional sense. But you have this kind of spectrum that you're running on, and you can get kind of middle ground, a really good middle ground type of anime if you're wanting to have a lot of fun with a Gundam style. Like there's the Gundam Crunch, but you have fun with it in the superhero sense. Go watch Gundam Fighter Z or something like that, or that has Shining Gundam and stuff like that. It's basically they got rid of war, and in that universe, instead of war, they have these huge fighting tournaments between the mechs, and whichever mech wins out, they have rule at that time type of thing. It's not exactly might makes right, because there are advantages and disadvantages in the colonies and stuff. So there's just enough dystopia to creep in on the utopia. It's a very nice balance if you're looking for a fun type of, I want my superhero mech, but I also want this, because they have arenas for them and it's specifically meant for this thing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's kind of the Zoids feel too, right? Because they had arenas set up, and they would battle it out in the arena. And I think that's cool too. I know right away when I think of mech, I go right to a military style, storyline. I like the idea of countries battling it out. With the diesel punk, I can even think of could even be like a World War II alternate universe mechs, like old ironclad style. Steampunk, diesel punk kind of mixture. Just battling over land and territories and gaining ground and taking out the other generals or however it may be. And I like that feel, the military feel, or even the you could say dystopia, where like the world's being invaded by the living mechs that are just aliens, essentially. What's the Japanese name for the living mechs that are come down and there's a name for them. I can't think of it right now, but
from which series would be the question?
Yeah, but then there's also AI mechs, AI take over certain mechs, and then you're battling them out with older style mechs, and there's a lot of different themes you could go. I definitely lean towards the more military war feeling with mechs. So multiple nations or different battlegrounds that are fighting over territory or resources. But that's just my feel. That's just what I feel when I want to play a mech game. I want to go have war.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's just my thoughts on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I do think you're correct in that it lends itself very easily to it, especially when we consider just going back to that idea of how gritty do you want it to be. Because in these superhero style mechs, you're not worried about the power source and the fuel consumption, and fixing up all these different, body parts that you can have damage to and stuff like that, or how good your scanner is. It can, a superhero type of mech, or a mech that is more, a mech game that is less focused on that, less crunchy, is fine to do. But if you want to have a gritty game, you really can do it in the mechs very easily, because you can start talking about, okay, whether you're on dystopian or utopian style, you can say, okay, I want to upgrade my power core for being able to reach this level or that level of thing. And when we get to handling scale, we need to do it handling scale and theme at the table. So I'll shift up that title. But handling mecha at the table, you can decide first if you're going for that dystopian theme, like the post-apocalyptic in our example. Well, where are you going to get the fuel? Whether it's diesel or gasoline or some kind of petrol or other derivative that's made that you're running your mech off of, and it's the only way that your colony is surviving, that becomes both gritty and dystopian. But you can also have a gritty and utopian when you have, like, the Gundam Fighter Z or whatever it was, or, again, whatever that was. You can still have that upgrade path for your mech, but you're not as worried about the gritty part as the dystopian part. You have the utopian part where you're not having to worry about paying for it as much as maybe earning it from the corporation that you're working with, or earning it through military progression if you're going with a military style campaign. You are, and this is, again, bleeding over into handling scale and theme at your table. Having that military style means that you can have a in-world reason why your players cannot just get the best mech stuff right off the bat. They have to get clearance for it. It's got to be within the budget. They have to show that they can give results to their superiors and stuff like that. And that would work even in a utopian society. There's got to be a reward to that risk that is being taken upon. So that's where
I like to lean towards a post-apocalyptical feel where you have your little group of mechs. It's what you've podged together, and you're destroying things as you need to, and you're using parts off of enemy bandits or raiders or whatever you want to talk about in their mechs. And that would be kind of a fun, even like post-World War II, tons of destruction, little villages popping up here and there, but there isn't like an overarching governmental feel. But, there's mechs everywhere, whether they're destroyed from the war or hodgepodge together. Mm-hmm. I don't know, that was just a thought that I had in my head right here while we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I think Levi really hit on it, and that's what we've been talking about pretty much, is thinking about what theme you want for your game generally, what feel you want, and all of these mech themes have some pre-assumed expectations, which you can either subvert or lean into. And I think that's where you can really decide which is going to work best for you. Because if you want something like you're talking about, Jake, if you want to have this feel of always going and looking and scavenging and trying to, it's all about building the mech and putting it together. Maybe you do something like, it's not exactly mech, but if you guys remember Metabots.
Yeah. I mean, that works. Right,
it's kind of like mini mechs, but like every time they'd fight somebody else, the part of your winnings was to take parts from the losing bot, and that could be another way to pull it in. But that would be if you want that main feel of your game to be collecting parts and jerry rigging, putting these mechs together and making them different as you grow. Versus something where you're always looking for military structure and growing in the military, that would have more of a socio-political feel to the game, probably. And
so there you
go.
Yeah.
Looking at the expectations that come with these themes and figuring out what fits well with what you want to do, both by subverting those or by leaning into them. I think that'll really help you pick.
If you're not sure, you can do a lot of it with Tech Mechs.
Yes, right. Yeah, there's a lot of wiggle room.
Well, they're kind of the core of the genre, so
So if you're playing in a game and it's and you're mixing and changing up mech parts, and it's based in Texas, does that mean it's a Tech Mech mix?
And that's
I thought you were just going to say a Tex Mix.
Tech Mech mix.
Now I'm hungry.
There you go. That's the thing you guys put down in the comments if you've made it this far, because we need to get to final thoughts for this one. So, Tech Mechs mix. There you go. Put that in the comments below if you've made it this far. But let's get to final thoughts from everybody before we move into the next theme. So, who wants to go first for final thoughts?
I can.
I'll go.
first.
Jinx, I love you. Go for it, Jacob.
So, my final thought is kind of like Levi just said: is Tech Mechs cover almost all what you need to, whatever genre or angle you're choosing, because you can really reflavor those, detach, reattach parts, and just add in jetpacks or whatever you need to. Because you can even do the heroes with the Tech Mechs. Really, I mean, Gundam. It's just a matter of how crunchy do you want to get, and what system you want to use as they're targeting body parts, or is it just an HP value with story base? Which is, I mean, both and all have their, bonuses. So,
yeah, I'll roll right off of that because that's a really good point that we didn't quite hit on. Was what system are you playing in? Depending on the system, it might lend itself slightly better,
right,
to different styles. Especially again, going back to what's the feel. So my final thought really is, what's the feel of your game? What system are you playing? What do your players want to do? And that'll kind of guide you, and just being aware of what and this is a general GM thing, of being aware of what the general expectations of the theme you pick carry with them. Because that's either going to be fun to subvert or fun to lean into. Just being aware of that. And as I always say, comment below what games you want to play as mechs or what you have. What's your favorite mech theme to play in?
Yeah. What you got, Levi?
Just because everyone's so down on it, try a Flesh Mech one-shot. See how the horror goes.
There you go.
See if you can make it work for yourself. I don't know what system would work well for it off the top of my head. Could probably do Open Legend RPG, because it works for a lot.
Yep.
Try it out.
The Moon system might work too. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Aaron Yeager.
Well, I'm talking a lot more like you climb into an existing resting Flesh Mech.
Fair enough.
That you have to feed.
Correct. An anime you can look back for that. It's usually called biofeedback. In mechs that have that type of thing. Evangelion did that with their system. They had a fluid that was inside, and theirs was more cyborg than it was pure flesh mech. But that depends on how body involved you want to be.
Yeah.
So,
just one gross one shot.
One gross one shot. Probably around October or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
It'd be a good Halloween one shot. It's real early, but
it's never too early to creep out your players.
True.
All right, but that's one you can look at. As far as my final thoughts, to build off of what an invading force type of thing, with the way what Jacob brought up, the AI, actual AI, not what we have today. We have machine learning. We don't actually have AI, because that's different. That's just we use AI colloquially.
Okay, so
we have machine learning,
right? Which is we don't have a generalized AI.
Yeah, we don't have something that has intelligence like we frame intelligence and personhood. We have something that is programmed to remember things and then act on those things, and that's mainly what we have today. But if you had a true AI threat, that would be something like with, I think Battlestar Galactica did that with what's their enemies called? The Cyclones? You can post that in the comment down below too.
Yeah, Cyclone.
Psy something, I think. But anyway, you can use that as an outside invading force, either that or the flesh mechs or whatever you want to do. And that's a way you can not only take away the idea of morality from the from the picture, because most of the time those are going to be drone bots that the machine's sending out. Cylons, okay. Most of the times those will be drone bots. They won't be individuals, even if a greater AI will usually be controlling those smaller units. That's most of the time how it works. So then you don't have to worry about the moral quandary of destroying a cybernetic intelligence until you get to the mothership or something. I don't know. Because this is fantasy, because if that was real life, you'd all be dead anyway. So you just nuke the planet from orbit and be done. But
well, okay, that's fair.
So
because I'm like, maybe it killed its own planet a couple, 1,000 light years away.
Yeah,
and it got here.
Well, just do the same thing to this, because it does. What does it have that's one of the. Okay, I'm getting too much real science in my head happening. So, putting that aside, my final thought: don't be afraid to use the AI. It's a very nice, clean way of getting a threat that they can feel good about just ripping apart and destroying.
Yep.
So, that's what I've got. And if that's for everything from everyone, as always, we encourage you to enjoy our content and things like that. Support both the Interplanar Crossroads and Avenue Studios at Patreon, Locals, Subscribestar for Interplanar Crossroads also, or contacting us directly. And, as always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
Okay, one down. Ooh, we stayed. Nice. I think we stayed pretty well on time. Pretty close to the 30-minute. If I looked at my time before we started, right?
Yeah, because we had a little bit of delay in the actual startup.
Yeah, I think I looked and it was like 25 minutes, and now we're at 54. So we're like, yeah.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, it's on point. I'm gonna stop this one and start up the next one.